If you're one of those working with strategy or strategy execution as a whole in your company, then Projectum xPM offers you rich ways to control your objectives and key results and also your business drivers. Let me show you how. So right now, again, we are logged into Projectum xPM. From here, I can see on the left-hand side that I have a strategy section. In here is my container for all business drivers. These would be your static drivers for the business. So mandatory, transformation, differentiation. But below here, we also have objectives and key results, which is what is often referred to as OKRs. Clicking on objectives means that we can go in and completely set up a new part of our strategy. So a business theme or a strategic theme or direction. That would typically be something like clicking the new button. And let's do a case of us wanting to be the best in the Nordics. And nothing more than that. We can then further describe what that means. So we want to be the #1 provider in the Nordics. Again, not very tangible, but something we just put in as a explanation to what we want to achieve, and obviously something that feels good. So we want to be the #1 provider in the Nordics, maybe in 2025. So down here, I can then be the owner of this objective, but we could also have another person, which is the lead for keeping an eye on whether or not we are tracking and executing the way we should. So here we can then go in and find a person that could just be, let's say, Simon in this case. So he's then the lead for this. We can later on set a status on the objective as a whole, whether or not we are on track or if it needs attention or if we are off track or behind. And then we can have a time frame. So from when to when do we want to realize these tangible goals? In this case, we're going to say it's, as it most often is, from the start of maybe January this year until the end of 2025. So let's just go down to, in this case, December 31st and hit the save button. So similar to portfolios and programs, in this case now there is a container for strategic elements you want to track. And in this case, we call that an objective. Then on the right-hand side now, we need to establish some key results. These would be the tangible artifacts so that we know exactly when we have achieved our goal. The way to set these up is that we click on key results. So at the very top of the key results, we can also go in and have a business process or some sort of governance controlling how we define goals, how we execute the realization of these goals, and also how we close them down. So again, if I want to progress from define to measurement, we have to set a target value, a start date, and end date. So below here, let's try to establish the goal. So we are going to write that to be part of the #1 in the Nordics, maybe you need 100 new customers in 2025. We could also write maybe 100 customers as a whole in 2025. So let's try and do that. And then down here say, in total, we have 100 customers by the end of 2025, which is part of being best in the Nordics. Then we have the result details. How do we want to measure this? So first and foremost, 100 is a number. So we can just use numerical values down here and then click on the start value. So again, the case here is that we need to know the baseline for how many customers we have today. So if we simply just write 0, that's most likely not the reality. So let's say we have 70 customers today, and the goal was to get 100 by the end of 25. That means if we then write 100 down here, that is actually from 70 to 100 we want to capture. That's the delta. So that's 30. We'll see that in just a second. And again, we're going to execute getting to these 100 customers from today and maybe until a certain point in time, let's say until July, end of July, where our campaign efforts will close down perhaps. So now we save the key result. And that means we now have established the goal. And on the right-hand side, we then have a chart up here and down here, the results log. In the lower right corner here is where you will go in continuously, maybe bi-weekly, maybe monthly, and check in where you are right now. So if I go in and click on this one and hit the new button, I can then say that today, on the 20th of March, we right now have 82 customers as a whole, and things are going great. We won new deals. We are happy, or whatever is the comment. I save it, and this gives us one point in time where we can now see that we are 82 right here, which means we are on track. If I just zoom out a little bit, we can see that the value 82 represents 40% realization of the goal as a whole. So let's just assume that we go into a time machine and fast forward into next month, saying it's now the mid of April, and we're right now at 100 customers. So things are still going great, and we just save here. Then because we store all the historical values, we're able to show up here that we have progressed from 40% realization all the way through to 100% realization in April. So we have a trend line, which is also what we can use to predict when we are most likely going to realize the strategy as a whole. So if everyone managing goals, check-ins, maybe bi-weekly, maybe monthly, we're able to see the progression over time and use those values to better predict when we are most likely done with the execution of the strategy as a whole. This was one basic example on how to set up the goal. Now what is typically also missing is the link to the work that needs to get done. So this is where our initiatives, which could be again projects or epics or ideas or programs, can be connected. So the example could be that you can create projects from here directly, or you can pick up projects that are already part of the system or part of your organization. Let's say Demo 500 and the Sierra Rocket X2. So when I say add to those, these two are now linked to my strategy, to my goal, and I can then use standard reports to show how many of these projects are in need of help, which has no issue, what about the money side of things, and what about the stage and statusing. So again, using the standard charts from the project world, but in the context of strategy planning and strategy execution. So this example was just some of the things we can do in strategy management. There's also a portfolio strategy management perspective that you can learn more about on our channel.